A very good morning. You're watching NDTV's very special rolling coverage of the Canadian elections. Canada Decides, as we're calling it. I'm Gauri Divedi, and over the course of the next 60 minutes, I'll give you the final set of details that matter in terms of who forms the government, what will be the key issues, and most importantly, whether the Liberals are outperforming their 2019 numbers when they got a government, but it was a minority government. But first up, as usual, the headlines. Mark Carney's Liberal Party is projected to form the next government. It may not be a majority government, as the numbers seem to indicate right now. Jagmeet Singh's NDP gains lead in 8 seats, even though smaller parties seem to have witnessed a collapse in terms of the seats as compared to the 2019 elections. Okay, it seems that the first results have come in, and they've projected a win for the Liberal Party. A snap election, remember, was called by Mark Carney, and this has been the election where there's been the shortest amount of period for campaigning, 37 days, and that's the mandate by law in Canada. So parties need to campaign for 37 days, and that's exactly the time that Mark Carney gave before the snap election was called out. All right, reports that are coming in right now on your screens. You can see the latest numbers that are coming in, projecting a win for Mark Carney. I want to quickly now get in a reporter joining me live on this story to give us all the very latest. I believe Yash is standing by to give us a lowdown of how things are looking right now. Yash, it's been a long evening for you. The polls closed about almost 35 minutes back for British Columbia, the last polls to close. And British Columbia, of course, is a large chunk of voters, one of the key deciding factors this time around. Talk to us about what it's looking like right now.
Well, it's the end of the road, it seems, for A, the Conservatives, and B, NDP, who has been one of the big parties when it comes to the opposition, who were also supporting the Liberals last time around when they formed the government. So it's going to be a sad end for NDP, and massive gains for Bloc Quebec, who have actually gained quite a few seats and is likely going to be the second largest party in the opposition, with the Conservatives. But the key issues that everyone was facing right across Canada, from east to the west coast, were jobs, economy, and at the same time, taxes. But with the elections happening across the border in the United States and Trump getting re-elected, the elections completely changed. The tone changed completely. It was all about survival now, with the constant jibes and taunts coming in from Donald Trump, including this morning on his Truth Social. It was interesting to see how people were voting. I spoke to a lot of first-time voters who are of my age and even younger than me. All of them were of the opinion that I think it's the Liberal Party that's looking more promising now when it comes to handling the threat from across the border. And Pierre Poilievre is considered to be a slightly non-rational leader, as most people call him. And that's, you don't want to put one and one together. That is Trump and Poilievre together in one room. And that's the reason why most people are voting for Liberals. It's quite similar to how, elections in India, if I dare to draw a parallel here, because when it comes to the state elections, when it comes to, it's similar to the provincial elections here. It's fought on issues. It's fought on issues like poverty. It's fought on issues like housing crisis, taxes, and at the same time, jobs. But when it comes to the national leadership, everyone wants to, elect the best possible candidate. And Mark Carney here, who is right now, as CBC is calling it, going to be the next Prime Minister for Canada. And it's going to be so interesting to see how this this banker and technocrat going to turn things around for the people of Canada, because a lot of them are quite literally suffering because of the long-term policies that have been in place with the previous government, which came from the same party. So it will be quite interesting to see the new trust that has been given to Mark Carney from the Liberal Party, who was
They've been
just
celebrating
literally
for
2 months ago.
30 minutes right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Who was
Absolutely. They've
just
been
literally,
celebrating for the last 30 minutes. And I want to quickly, in fact, as we keep playing out those numbers, also tell our viewers that there are two very interesting trends that we need to watch out for. And something that really tells the story behind the story, which is that there was these interesting set of group of voters that came together who actually started a campaign which was modest metros, because cost of living was such a big issue. Modest metros were these bunch of voters across Canada. They wanted to put the focus back on the issues, Yash, that you are talking about, even though, of course, the two people who were not on the ballot really overshadowed the elections, which is Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau. And a lot of, in fact, this election was about just that. On your screens are those, and let's take those full frame, if those visuals are coming in right now. Let's take them full frame for our viewers to see. That's the latest set of celebrations coming in. For the Liberal Party, it seems that they may be doing better than last time around as well. Those numbers are yet to come in. But in 2019, the NDP had done well, and so had some of the other smaller parties, including the one in Quebec. It may not be the case this time around, because that could be this story as far as the change in the voting pattern, particularly in Quebec. Quebec, remember, is one of the provinces where the tariff impact has been quite significant. Montreal and parts of that region have seen a significant impact on the tariff war that Donald Trump initiated against Canada, and then, of course, the backlash that has been going on since then. Canadian polls are broadly seen as the most important election in the generation, these ones that NDTV has been at the top of, one of the world's most prosperous nations, America's closest ally, trading partner. Canada has found itself in recent months unexpectedly in the crosshairs of President Trump, as we've been talking, targeted with tariffs and annexation threats. But the country has also seen many of its coveted national accomplishments in regard to the economy and social issues flip, including higher costs of living, high unemployment, rising costs of housing, and a surge in homelessness and substance abuse. Many of these problems, not just in Canada but in other advanced economies, were, of course, exacerbated by the pandemic. I'm going to play out that report in just a bit, but I want to quickly now get in Maha Siddiqui, who's joining by to give us the very latest in terms of the elections. Many had predicted that it will be a Liberal win, given the fact that Donald Trump acted as a big savior for Mark Carney and his party. What's it looking like on ground? Maha, talk to us about the fact that it ended up becoming sovereignty as the big issue. Donald Trump was not on the ticket, but he was the one really deciding this election.
Absolutely. He was the elephant in the room, really. Donald Trump dominated this election campaign from the 20th of January, which is when the entire campaign flipped in favor of the Liberal Party. For a year almost before the last 3 months, the Conservatives were pretty sure that they would be the first past the post, be able to form a government on their own, considering the unpopularity of the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. And come January, things changed. And how? Mark Carney is now in the pole position to be able to become the Prime Minister again. And again, I say, because he was Prime Minister for 3 weeks before he called in for snap polls in Canada, leveraging that moment when he believed that the Liberal Party will be able to make a comeback due to the threats from US, both in terms of the trade threat, that is the trade war and the economic coercion, and also the annexation threat from the US, which remains the biggest issue and top of the voters' minds today when they cast their ballots. Voting has now closed even on the West Coast, and the counting in the West Coast will also begin now. However, it's the East Coast that clearly remains most vital as far as the counting and the number of seats is concerned in Parliament, with Ontario sending 122 members of Parliament and Quebec sending 78 members of Parliament. So these two provinces really will determine who is the next Prime Minister and which party gains the most number of seats in Parliament. So clearly the results from the East Coast are already suggesting that the Liberal Party is in the lead, which makes Mark Carney a happy man today, considering that the voters have shown their confidence in a man who is a newcomer to politics. He's a former banker, an economist, somebody who's been an advisor to Justin Trudeau, but he has been able to so cleverly pivot his campaign to project himself as someone who wasn't really associated with Justin Trudeau, even though he was. He's been able to project himself as an individual who will be the best person who can negotiate with Donald Trump. And today, that is what he is taking his gains from. Donald Trump clearly was the biggest influence in these elections. And today as well, as the Canadians started voting, Donald Trump put out a message on Truth Social, suggesting that, in fact, indicating that they should choose him as the leader of Canada, something that is clearly irking the Canadians and determining their votes.
All right. In fact, I want to quickly tell our viewers that we've got all constituency, all ground covered when it comes to Canada. And in fact, along with Maha, we have Vikram Chaudhary, who's joining us from Brampton, Yash Chawla, who's of course with us from Toronto, Nick Harper, who's with us from Washington, D.C., given the fact, as I said, well, Donald Trump was not on the Whig ticket, but he was pretty much the deciding factor there. And Preeti is also with us, Preeti O'Brien Martin. She's a candidate from Calgary East. Her father was from the Conservative Party. She's on the ticket from the Liberals. Talk to us, Preeti, about this election. We spoke on the eve of it, but it looks like Mr. Mark Carney is, well, he's got Lady Luck smiling on him, isn't it?
It's a fantastic result so far. He not only did he get the mandate to be prime minister, but he also won his seat. So that is fantastic. So we are being guided by the best. In fact, most of the world actually regards Mr. Carney as one of the best choices to for them. They would have been happy if Prime Minister Carney would have ran for them. So we are very, very fortunate to have him as our Canadian Prime Minister.
This is the first time that Mr. Mark Carney has put himself on a ticket. Till now, of course, he hadn't contested an election. He became the Prime Minister of Canada for a brief period. He led the party to this victory, and those final numbers are yet to come, indicating as to whether it will be a majority government. Remember, they didn't touch that mark last time around, and if we have those numbers, let's put that out to talk about the halfway mark, how the parties project were the numbers last time around. Let's put that out for our viewers joining in right now. Liberal Party is leading at 150 seats. Still less than the halfway mark. But all right, let's get in Michael's view as well, and then we go back to some of the other reporters as well. Michael, in terms of this election, it's an important election because it also told the world that when it came to some of the core issues regarding these elections, sovereignty topped it. But so did some of the other factors as well, economy being one, housing being one. And when I mentioned modest metros earlier, it was because it gave an idea about how important day-to-day issues are for Canadians.
Yes, absolutely. But I think Pierre Poilievre is the unfortunate victim of Trump derangement syndrome. I think Pierre Poilievre is a victim of the backlash of Donald Trump's, at some point, bullying and his negative messaging of trying to lessen Canada and challenge the sovereignty. I think Mark Carney did an excellent job of being able to position himself supporting Canada and supporting Canadians. Well, he had the microphone, and I think that Pierre Poilievre may have missed an opportunity there. But I do believe that in the event that the Trump tariffs did not come at this time, having an election going on, and that President Trump didn't continually do that little, poke the tiger, that I think that unfortunate reality of Pierre Poilievre being maple MAGA, as one would say, and trying to wrap his cart to the Trump train to a certain extent was the detriment of his campaign. But I think that the end result is going to be, as far as the poll numbers are looking, it's probably going to be again a minority government. And where the real control here is, as you pointed out, rightly so, will be the Quebecois, the Parti Quebecois, because it will not be the NDP this time who will hold the Liberals' feet to the fire. And, you know, a vote of non-confidence is quite easy. We could be thrown back into an election in 4 to 6 months because depending on how all these economic things come down, you never know. But we'll have to see how the relationship with the U.S. and Canada takes place. But it definitely looks as if it's going to be a minority government. I mean, the polls are definitely pointing that way.
If the polls are pointing that way, it will once again become that some of the other smaller parties will become that much more significant. Something that made Justin Trudeau hamstrung sort of a prime minister, and Mr. Jagmeet Singh made demands and became extremely important in Justin Trudeau's scheme of things that probably and most certainly led to his downfall as well at the end. On your screens right now are the Prime Minister's seat where Mark Carney is leading comfortably. Let's put in Mr. Pierre Poilievre's seat as well. He is contesting from Carleton, and then we go back to Preeti to talk about her constituency as well. Canada calls them ridings. Let's get in Pierre Poilievre's seat as well, because that's an important and interesting seat for two reasons. Carleton, that's of course Preeti. She's trailing Calgary East. And Preeti, I'm going to come back and ask you on that, given the fact that we would like to get your views on what worked, what didn't work. As far as Pierre, what I want to tell about Mr. Poilievre's seat is that Carleton is the seat which had two very important aspects. One, highest number of candidates, over 91 candidates actually are contesting at that seat, Carleton, because they wanted to, of course, make a point regarding the first past the post. So everybody is contesting against what many thought would be the next Prime Minister of Canada 3 months back. And the second important fact about that seat, Carleton, is that it also has seen the maximum amount of early voting anywhere across Canada. So that makes that seat very interesting. I'm going to come back and talk more on that when we get those latest numbers. Preeti, talk to us about what worked in Calgary East and what didn't. Your father has been a Conservative Party stalwart for decades. You chose the Liberal Party ticket. As things stand right now, the voters do not seem to be convinced.
Nope. Well, you know what? The things that worked for me was that I was doing a grassroots campaign. I had the challenges of coming into the race at the very last minute. They approved me literally 3 days before they called the election. I had, and it wasn't something that I was expecting to do. So my biggest challenge was getting my name out there without any local media coverage. I think they were fearful of my last name because what has happened is towards this last week, more and more people have come up to me and said, "Oh my God, you were running." And I'm like, yes. So it was very hard for me to do a proper outreach in the short period of time. So this is just the beginning. I guess the biggest thing for me is that everyone that has come out has asked me to stay. And so I will stay no matter what. I will take the course because it's not really a Conservative riding as it is a low voter turnout riding.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's interesting given the fact that this time around the voting has been higher significantly than 2021. So that's very interesting and probably requires some amount of introspection as to why the voters in Calgary East didn't come out and vote. In fact, we also have Mr. Patel with us, someone who is aligned to the Conservative Party. He may not have contested, but talk to us, Mr. Patel, about, well, it looked like a case of Sonia yet so far. But what it looks like is that when Mr. Trump came to power, and the first thing Mr. Carney did about axe the tax, he actually did axe the tax. Mr. Poilievre had no answers to take his campaign forward. Is that what you think happened, that Mr. Poilievre was stuck in a particular space, even though Canada had moved ahead, Canadian politics had moved ahead?
Well, there is lots of factors did impact into this current elections, and Mr. President Trump was one of the factor, and everybody on Conservative, we were banging the band that axe the carbon tax. And as soon as Mr. Carney came, he says, okay, I'm going to axe the
Yeah,
tax.
that's the first thing he did. That's the first thing he did.
That's the first thing he did. And the slogan is gone now. Now what? How the election slogan will come out? So Pierre Poilievre had to come out with a different things like before for 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP or Jagmeet coalition he was talking about. That one was done. Now the carbon tax thing came up. That one was done. Every project or every of the slogan he had put out or every of the ideas the conservative have put out was kind of taken from Liberal or it was adopted. It says, okay, yes, you are saying this is right. So we will adopt that thing. So that's where Mr. Poilievre had to come out and talk differently to see or show the people that he is the best prime minister they will choose to fight against this US tariff, fight against this housing crisis we have it, fight against this immigration crisis we have it. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that the message has been passed very clearly to the people.
Indeed. And TV Paul, who's a Canadian political scientist, is with me as well. And I want to put the same question to you as well, sir, that when things started, Mr. Poilievre had a fair bit of lead, but it almost fell quite significantly. And you had Mr. Carney touching early 40s, an enviable number for Justin Trudeau last year. But the fact that the messaging didn't change, the narrative didn't change, even though everything around Canadian politics changed ever since Trump came to power.
Even if his message changed, he wouldn't have won, I think, partly because a lot of young voters and left-leaning voters in support of NDP, as well as Bloc Québécois, changed their votes in a strategic way, strategic voting, because they are afraid of Poilievre's message. That's one. Secondly, the Liberals were able to project him as a junior Trump, which is unfair, I think, but unfortunately that stuck with the youth in particular. So there is an existential moment in Canada today. There is nationalism in many places, including Quebec, and they are looking at who can lead at this pivotal moment. And Carney definitely comes across as a more mature leader, less emotional, and with an economic background. So they are looking at the best option they have. I think it's a strategic voting. It wouldn't have been a big difference even if Poilievre changed his message.
All right. I think we also have Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, former Consul General of India in Toronto, joining us to talk more about these results. Ambassador Bhatia, we spoke about some of this on the eve of these elections. It looked like Mr. Carney is set to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. He was interim, he led the party, but now he's headed for a decisive mandate. It may not be a majority government. The 172, 173 mark is still something that the Liberals are away from. But clearly, he is going to lead lead Canada going forward. How do you see this impacting? Let me come back to why this matters most for me, for our viewers, for NDTV, the India-Canada relationship.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back on this platform. I think we all collectively are trying to decipher the meaning of what is now unfolding. I think if these early trends get established and the Liberal victory is becomes very clear and certain, then obviously certain kind of analysis will have to be done. I think as we discussed yesterday, certainly there is a desire for change, but there is also a very strong need for leadership to deal with the new US administration. What we have not covered in detail is the fact that the economic issues are of a pressing nature for Canada. Canada is a G7 country. It's one of the most advanced economies, but estimates suggest that in the next 1 or 2 years, it probably will serve as the lowest performing economy among the developed countries. So with or without the US issue, economic situation is becoming quite difficult. And so in that context, it seems to me that the voters may be preferring to be led by a man who has a clear record of good management of economy and banking and finance in the recent decade, particularly both in Canada and the UK. So that would be the likely interpretation. But I think it's also very important to know that historically, Canada, gets to generally decide as per the wishes of where the large sections of people live in this country, which is essentially two states, Ontario and Quebec. So we are waiting for these constituencies to come in.
I want to quickly tell our viewers, they account for 58% of the seats for Canada, Quebec and Ontario. They're the vote-rich segments, and how they decide what they feel essentially decide what happens in Ottawa to a large extent. Before I slip into a break, I want to take a very quick view from Preeti, who's been, of course, very brave on a day when the results don't seem to be supporting her efforts. But I want to understand from you that while these are early numbers, a final majority mark is still some time away, or it looks away for the Liberal Party. How different do you think, if there's a minority government in 25, how different it will be from the one in 2019 that Justin Trudeau had led?
I think there's a bit more there's more unity in the sense that we want to actively to fight a common enemy. So I think we will be able to have a longer minority government. Traditionally, if everybody can work together, then it's actually good. But in 2019, we didn't have the same nationalism. We didn't have the ability to have our provinces open up and work together as a
repeated claims about
trade.
Annexation and wanting Canada to be the 51st state, and there were no tariff threats. That was the difference.
Right, and so unity is a real big thing that you can even see it. All the different provinces are working together, so we can work together and sell our resources to each other instead of down south. So I think it might be a little longer.
Okay, so I'm going to take a very quick break, come back on the other side, talk more about two important aspects and the trends that these numbers throw up. One, how will the Liberal Party now be led under Mark Carney, even though it may not be a majority government, just like in 2019? And secondly, the big picture, what will be the New Delhi-Ottawa relationship under Mark Carney? We come back and talk more. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to Canada Decides, NDTV's rolling coverage of the Canadian elections. Viewers, if you're tuning in right now, elections have ended, voting has closed, early numbers have come in. British Columbia was the last to close for voting, so those numbers are going to come in just a bit. But as things stand right now, the numbers, the early trends seem to indicate that Mark Carney is set to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, but he doesn't have the majority. He is not at the halfway mark of 172. Remember, it's a 343 House. 172 is the halfway mark. Liberals didn't get there the last time around. It looks like they may not get there this time around as well. But that's just part of the story. The other part of it is that some of the smaller parties are set to see a complete collapse of their vote share. That includes the NDP led by Jagmeet Singh, the man who was at the forefront of leading Justin Trudeau's government towards completely failing the India-Canada relationship last time around, is now set to lose the National Party status. His party is set to fail to secure 12 seats in these elections, and that will mean that NDP will no longer be a national party in Canada. Jagmeet Singh, viewers, has been the person who's been at the forefront of the extremist views related to Khalistan that had a major dent on the India-Canada relationship under Justin Trudeau's tenure. Since then, the relationship has recovered, but guess what, viewers? Jagmeet Singh's fate has tanked. And on your screens are those latest updates coming in that the NDP has failed to secure 12 seats in these elections. Now, this also means that he will not be a deciding factor even if Mark Carney doesn't reach the 172 mark. Jagmeet Singh is not going to be a man deciding the fate of Mark Carney going forward. So yes, Lady Luck smiling on Mark Carney for more than one reason, but not for Jagmeet Singh. And that, of course, has huge ramifications for Canadian politics as well as the India-Canada relationship. As I said, the man who's been at the forefront of the extremist views with regard to Khalistan, extremist views with regard to how the India-Canada relationship got impacted, is now facing political oblivion. It may be political irrelevance for sure for Jagmeet Singh if his party loses National Party. Ambassador Bhatia, let me get in your thoughts on this, because this is going to have a huge impact on the future government. Mark Carney's government going forward will not be hamstrung the way Justin Trudeau's was. At least the Khalistani extremist ideologies will not be part of the New Delhi-Ottawa relationship anymore.
This is certainly significant. I think, as we all know, there are mainly 5 parties, and obviously the government will be formed either by the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. That leaves the 3 other parties, one of which you are reporting would lose its national status. That leaves the other 2, Bloc Québécois and the Greens Party. And obviously, we will have to watch as to how they are performing and what exactly they are bringing in. If, as you are pointing out, it could be a minority Liberal government, then they will have to go and secure political support from one of these 2 or both parties, which is doable, which is feasible, but it will all depend on the post results negotiations. What comes to my mind is that this means that the strong leadership of one single party that people were hoping may not come through. It's still too early, of course, to talk about the outcome. We will have to wait until all the results are in. But on the other hand, I think this is also important that there could be the building of national consensus, at the political level, that we have 2 or 3 major national issues: economy, relations with the US, role in the world, and that will have to be then tackled in a proper manner. You mentioned about the India angle. As I mentioned
No, sir, there's no India angle. India is the primary focus. We are looking at these elections. They matter, but they matter to us for a reason, and that's why this rolling coverage is that much more important. Stay with us, sir, because I want to get in Vishal Vivek, my colleague, to really give us the details as far as the breaking news that's flashing on our screens right now. The big takeaway from these Canadian elections. Vishal, take it away. Give us the latest.
So as you can see right behind my screen, we have the results here. It shows that the Liberals have gone on to win at least 150 seats. These many number of seats are there that they are leading in. And on the other hand, Conservatives are leading in about 145 seats. And the major broadcaster of Canada, CBC, has already declared that the Liberals will go on to form government. Whether it will be minority or majority, as you said earlier, that remains to be seen. On the other hand, the third biggest party is expected to be the Bloc Québécois. That is expected to win around 24 seats as of now. And on the other hand, you see the NDP seat. The controversial leader from Canada, Jagmeet Singh, if he does not win 12 seats, if his party does not win 12 seats, which seems to be the case right now, it's leading in 10 seats as we speak, it will lose the national status, and that will be a big blow to the party, because it had been struggling in the opinion polls, and they had said that it is expected that he could be out of the national reckoning in the next polls. That seems to be the case right now. And as we all know, he is known to have pro-Khalistani views. He has made a lot of controversial statements against India. His party has hosted a lot of pro-Khalistani leaders. That has created a lot of ruckus between both the countries. The ties have been at all-time low just a few months ago. So all of that will come into the picture. But so far, you can see that Liberals have a comfortable lead already, more than 150 seats, and they are expected to form the government anytime.
I believe that Jagmeet Singh would also be asked to then leave if his party loses the national party status. That's extremely important, and that will have ramifications. It's not just about the NDP. That's not what the focus is. The focus is on the India-Canada relationship, which suffered because of Jagmeet Singh and NDP. And that, in fact, is a question I want to put forth to both Preeti as well as Ton Patel, as well as and in fact, Mr. TV Paul as well, the fact that how much will the India-Canada relationship now be impacted by these developments, and also what could be the future roadmap like? Mr. Paul, let me ask that question to you first. How do you see now the next phase of the India-Canada relationship, especially in the backdrop of someone like Jagmeet Singh, his party doing so badly, his political fate almost sealed? Does that mean now Mark Carney is going to look to repair, rebuild, and take this relationship forward?
My reading is that Mark Carney definitely is more pragmatic when it comes to India and the relationship with India. But I wouldn't rule out NDP support. They have got 10 seats or will get. Maybe necessary for Mark Carney to form a government unless he goes with the Bloc Québécois, which is even worse in Canadian terms, because the Bloc Québécois has only one agenda, that is
separatist.
They are not separatists. At this point, there is not much support for separatism in Quebec. I'm in Montreal, and it's declining because the larger threat is the United States. But Mr. Singh is likely to lose the leadership. He's supposed to get out of that role. And so we don't know who will take over NDP at some point. But the point is, Mark Carney is definitely going to have economic relationship with a large number of states in Asia Pacific as well as Europe. And India definitely pictures in that context. But I think quite a bit of diplomacy is needed on both sides, because the relationship is still suffering from a lot of that backlash from the past few last year's backlash. And the judicial process may continue. We don't know how that will produce any more revelations. Okay. But I am optimistic.
No, but that is not the point. The point is not about judicial, any of those details. The point is about the outlook, and I think that is the larger picture. I want to quickly now get in Yash Chawla as well, who's with us to talk more about the latest that's unfolding, given the fact that it's now certain. It's in fact, the Canadian broadcasters, the state broadcasters, they have actually said that it's now Mark Carney who's set to be the next Prime Minister. But explain to us, Yash, right now, that the party hasn't reached the halfway mark. It is not at 172. It will need the support of some of these smaller parties. Will that dilute, change the agenda? Will that make legislative business tougher? And who are the parties that Mr. Carney is likely to tap into the first?
That's an interesting question, because the government doesn't function the same way as it does, or let's just put it across as the elections don't exactly work the same way as they work in India. It will be a minority government, as what we are understanding, and you don't need to have the absolute majority of the 172 golden marker. Keep in mind that the last government that was led by Justin Trudeau was also a minority government with the support from NDP. So it's going to be interesting, because you're going to keep a lot of people happy to ensure that the House still functions. And when if you remember in February this year, when Justin Trudeau was trying to step aside, and there was this whole issue between the November of 2024 to the February of 2025, when Justin Trudeau was trying to, I wouldn't say play with fire, but at the same time, Jagmeet Singh was also threatening to pull out of the government, but was not ready to pull out of the government, and was waiting for some provincial elections to take place. And then, and eventually they never pulled out of the government. So it's going to be a topsy-turvy ride for this minority government if it happens. And who knows when the next elections will be called again, because it's going to be an uphill climb for the Liberal Party. Keeping in mind what everyone thinks of the damage which was already being done in the last 4 odd years, specifically with the policies, with the immigration, as well as the housing crisis. It's going to be a very difficult and an uphill climb for the Liberal Party. And the next 6 months after the election, after the swearing in of Mark Carney, are going to be extremely crucial for not just Canada, but for also the political relations from with the United States across the border, and also with major nations like India, China, Mexico, because we come in the same continent as Mexico. That will be very crucial.
Indeed, that will be very crucial, and I think that is when the tough task of fixing Canada's relations, particularly with America, the most important trading partner, will take center stage. And after the rough and tumble of electoral politics, the very first for Mark Carney at the age of 60, he will then look to take care of probably the only G7 economy which is set to enter a recession, and that I think is very important. But Yash, I want to ask you one more thing, and this is details that are just coming in right now, which is downtown Toronto, a constituency that the Liberals lost last time. They've regained this time around, and many believe that really tells the mood of the nation, that how things swung back for the Liberal Party.
Well, it's rightfully called the bastion of the Liberals. It's the home turf, as they call it. Interestingly, just a few months back, there were the provincial elections, and Doug Ford, who is a Conservative, won the elections, and many thought that would be the the early picture that everyone was painting, that it will be Conservatives this time who will be leading the elections and winning the elections, but as in, you threw the elephant in the room, and that elephant, by the way, was Donald Trump. I mean, that really swung the favor in front of for the Liberals. But as you mentioned, the stronghold of Liberals, which is the downtown, it is a tough place to be right now, to be honest, because it has a housing crisis which is looming in right now. The condo market, the condominium market, as we call it, the housing market in Toronto has crashed. There are no new sales happening. Realtors are looking at a 40% nosedive when it comes to the number of sales that are happening month on month. So it's going to be a tough situation, not just for the realtors or for the people living there, but also for all the parties.
Absolutely.
Whatever happens from now on, it's going to be an uphill climb for Mark Carney and the Liberals.
And yes, stay with me, which is why the Liberal fortress coming back to Carney's camp was so important, and I wanted to address that. But there are numbers are changing. The election is still not over. Remember, it's never over till it's all over. And let's put those numbers out for our viewers to see. It looks like the Conservatives have climbed up a little, and it may end up being a neck-and-neck fight. On your screens, the Liberals at 157, the Conservatives at 148. Of course, the number is still, there is a bit of a gap between the two, but remember, neither of them have reached the 172 mark. But as Yash was explaining, it doesn't work the way it works in India, which is that parties or a coalition needs to get that number to be able to govern, as it happened in Justin Trudeau's case last time around. We saw that. Let's get in Michael to talk more about this in terms of the fact that this is a race that is still not over. How do you read it? Some have already declared the election in favor of Mr. Mark Carney, but it seems like the Conservative Party is making small but important gains.
If you look at the numbers, there's the amount of polls that have just turned in is 342 of 343 available seats. Currently, what's being reported here is 155 for the Liberals and 151 for the Conservatives. That is a 4-vote difference. That means the importance of the Bloc de Québécois with their 22 seats, 22 or 25 seats, could literally, through a vote of non-confidence, tumble the government. So not only did the Liberals not get a majority, we're in a very, very tight race, and there's still seats that could be contested. The one thing that does look like it's evident is that the NDP did not, as you well reported, did not get 12 seats. But This is a horse race with 2 or 3 seats between the Liberals and the Conservatives as it's sitting here right now. So I'm going to tell you the importance of the Bloc de Québécois, and the Bloc de Québécois was more aligned with the Conservatives than they were the Liberals. So, I mean, this is going to be a tumultuous little finish, and anybody who's going to contest whether they lost or won their riding could change this whole demographic. Very, very interesting. Wow.
Okay. That's a very important fact that you mentioned, that it seems that it is going Mr. Carney's way. But I want to understand, and you know, this is something that even the viewers would like to understand, that how much does legislative work get impacted with a government not reaching the halfway mark? And that's a question I throw open to the entire panel. Mr. Paul, I want to start with you, and then I get in Ambassador Bhatia as well, because this is important to understand. That does it impact the Prime Minister's legislative business, restricts his elbow room to be able to take big reforms that the Canadian economy needs right now? You're on mute, sir.
Go for the big kill if they are part of this coalition. They definitely will bargain the maximum they can get. But beyond that, I think the big projects, the East-West pipeline and a number of energy projects, all will require support from Bloc Québécois. And it's very hard to know where they stand on some of that, especially if that affects Quebec. So it is going to be an uncertain future for Canada. Not the capacity to fight with Donald Trump will not increase unless, of course, there is a national consensus, which is not yet there on how to deal with him on some of these issues. But I think it is a challenge. We all wish it was a majority government. Whoever one party would have been able to run it, but it doesn't look like the electorate wants that this time.
I mean, there in terms of how much does a hung government get impacted in terms of legislative business?
Well, I think it's a very significant factor. Legislative agenda is an essential tool for the government to ensure marching forward. And if you don't have a majority, it is going to be a handicap. But more importantly, at the political plane, it's very clear that Canada is facing, by its own admission, an existentialist crisis, not just vis-a-vis the US, as I said, but on the economic plane, and in fact, in kind of political moral terms as well.
Yes.
So if at that stage you do not have a strong government, a strong leadership, you will have to develop national consensus on every major issue, one step at a time. So the challenge is going to become bigger.
Okay, indeed. And you know, on your screens are those latest numbers, which is, let's put that numbers out, because that tells you how close this may actually go down to. The Conservatives, these numbers suggest, is at 151, and the Liberal Party is at 154. BQ could be the deciding factor. That's the party that operates in the French-speaking part of Canada, the Quebec region, that has, of course, Montreal and some of the other cities. They are deeply impacted by the trade tariffs that have been imposed by Donald Trump. The lumber business, those are the sectors that get impacted in Quebec, and BQ will be the deciding factor. How much will that impact the policies and the politics of the next government and the next Prime Minister remains to be seen. But who will be the next Prime Minister? Look at these numbers, 154, 151. Can it go the either way, or is it a done deal right now? It's too close to now say that, but it's important to note that out of the 343 seats, 342 have been called. Only one seat is left. It may be a hung government, but it most certainly is looking like it's going in Mark Carney's way. If we have those final seats of the two Prime Ministers in reckoning, the two candidates, the two primary candidates, Mark Carney, who's won his maiden election from yeah, there you can see the Nepean seat, he's leading, and Mr. Pierre Poilievre, if he can have his seat as well. He was trailing the last time I checked, but it's also because, as I said, this was a seat that had 91 candidates. The ballot paper only going into 3 long pages. But anyhow, that's how the numbers look right now. If we have some live shots coming in latest visuals of the Liberal Party camp celebrating, and they have every reason to celebrate. But I want to now bring focus to the one aspect which I think is extremely important, the Indo-Canadian group in as a demography, as a group that is in Canadian politics, how much they matter, how significant is that? And, Michael, let me ask that to you. In terms of the Indo-Canadian group, they've been at the forefront of the previous couple of elections, this time around as well. How do you see them impacting politics and policy making of Canada going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, the city of Brampton, under the leadership of Mayor Patrick Brown, has always been a very interesting community. I mean, it is a majority South Asian, and it votes generally liberal, but they do change to conservatives. They back the party that puts them in the best light. Indo-Canadians are hardworking people. Indo-Canadians bring business and create business. They're an absolute important fabric of our society and of the industriousness of those people who have come to this country and want to be Canadian and work with Canadians, as well as those who are born Canadians. So I think not only culturally but work ethic wise. I think the one interesting aspect here is that one of the policies that was talked about was the student visas.
Indeed.
There were some bad actors that tainted a certain group of student attendees in Canada.
Yes.
And I think that's something that has to be addressed so it doesn't become a country issue.
Remains a specific issue.
Are very much in politics.
Absolutely.
And are very, very important contributors.
And that you've raised an important point. I want to get in Sai Vikas on this to talk more about the students issue, the student visa issue. And of course, Canada as an important destination for Indians. You want to talk to us about sir, the fact that some of the politics that really shaped policies related to immigration the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. How do you see the future outlook?
Hi, good evening to everyone. Good evening to the panel. It's going down to the wire, probably to the last ball, as they say in cricket. We'll see how that shapes out. Interesting comments from the panel, but let me address your question. I think that there are two facets to it. I think there's one economic facet, if I may, how Canadian economic interests and foreign policy can be aligned to kind of fuel the growth. In the last few years, what we have seen is relationships with large superpower economies like India and China, both have kind of soured. So the foreign policy was not handled deftly, if I may say. And with the tariff threats and Canada facing an existential crisis, I think it needs to find a space in foreign policy to accommodate win-win interests with both India and such emerging economies. So I feel the new government will look at it
Indian
differently.
students looking at Vikas. Indian students looking at Canada
point
as a destination has been at a 4-year low. There's been over a 25% dip in the number of Indian students who want to go to Canada. A lot of that is because of the local domestic issues. Do you see some of them being addressed now and it becoming an important and attractive destination for students?
Absolutely. I was coming to it. So the second piece of it is that the confidence in Canada has been eroded. Like Michael said, there have been some bad actors, but that being said, generally the policy making has been quite erratic. There's been no method in madness. The immigration policy kept changing on a frequent basis, and that has impacted the confidence of Canada, especially in the South Asian market. So that needs to be restored. So there has to be a semblance of policy that needs to come in.
Yes.
And I believe that whoever comes into power now would give a better direction to the immigration policy, because the cornerstone of Canada's story over several decades has been immigration. And students do bring in a lot of multicultural fabric to it. They're hardworking people. They come in and settle and build. career in Canada.
Right.
Thank you.
I want to get a quick word from Yash before we wrap things up here. Yes, Yash, you had a point to make.
Well, I was just listening to the conversation about how students bring in this multicultural fabric to the country and how hardworking they are. Immigration, along with the student visa policy, is directly related, and in some form it materializes into, the when students come in, they would love to stay back, love to get involved more with the country and get jobs, and then eventually get permanent residency and then citizenship, which is always the case for other people as well. Like, this is the same
Yes.
route for everyone as well. But with the way things have been running right now, colleges
Yes.
are being forced to shut down a lot of courses, a lot of campuses are deserted now, and this entire process
Yes.
is leaving a lot of students feeling cheated, that this image, this dream of Canada, that
Yes.
they would land up on the shores and get work hard and show their mettle and prove their worth and get residency, is unfortunately coming to an end.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this special edition, Canada Decides. And as we wrap things up, well, you just saw the latest details coming in of Pierre Poilievre trailing in his own seat, a man who was set to be the Prime Minister just 3 months back. And that's just how much the Canadian elections have changed. Thank you so much for watching this very special broadcast.